Actors, FKA twigs, Bill Skarsgård, and the moderator T.L. Hey guys, thank you for coming here on your opening night. That's very cool. I totally dug the movie and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about it. So this is USC and we have an audience of film lovers, and something I always love to talk about is we love movies. What were the movies you guys loved when you were growing up that made you want to make movies?
Well, I'll start just because Twigs is looking at me. I think to me, the films that I loved growing up that actually inspired this movie was Diva, Subway, Jacob's Ladder, Ghost Dog, A Matter of Life and Death, and Wings of Desire, and Tarkovsky's Stalker.
Oh, Wings of Desire, yeah.
I came prepared tonight, man. Oh. Bill, your
How about you, Bill?
I love The Lion King.
Twigs, do you have movies that inspired you when you were young?
I don't know, I feel on the spot. The one that really comes into my mind right now actually is when I was 15 I watched Girl Interrupters. And it just really affected me because I just thought that you could just be weird and that was fine.
So I totally dug the movie, and one of the things I loved about it was that it was different from the original, that you guys weren't doing a remake, that you did something really different. What were you guys fans of The Crow, the original Crow, when you were younger? Like what was, I mean, it came out before you guys were born, I think. But what about you, Rupert? What was your...
I was well born. I was 20, I think, 20 something.
Well born.
I think the graphic novel inspired us the most in a way, and I think obviously with reinventing something from source material, as an artist you want to look at that source material and go, how does this inspire me? I wasn't interested in like the commercial viability. I wanted to do something that emotionally connected with me, which is about grief and love and loss, emotions that we all deal with as humans. That's a very universal story, and we all go through that, and so I really wanted to find those things that connected with me emotionally as a filmmaker, as opposed to looking at something and just copying it. So we really went back to the drawing board in a way, because that was a more personal story. As an adaptation is destruction in a way. You have to destroy the original in order to adapt something new.
Bill, I'm such a fan of yours, and I always felt like you're such a chameleon and that you can do anything. What drew you to this role, and what made you excited about making this?
Well, it started with like Rupert and I were supposed to work together on a different movie like a year and a half before.
Yeah.
So I knew Rupert from afar, and then we had a few conversations, and then when this came about, Rupert reached out and we had a deep conversation about what he wanted and his vision for this movie. And obviously I think it's an incredible source material, an incredible movie and graphic novel, and Rupert's vision, and we really bonded on that conversation, and I was just very, very cool. This is something that we can do together, I think. So that's kind of what drew me to it.
And Twigs, this is your first major role in a film. What made you want to do this role in this movie?
Well, I think a couple of reasons. First of all, I really love the culture and the world building around The Crow, so I was really excited to build on that. But also, when I first met Rupert, he gave me the challenge of creating a Shelley that was so adorable and so vulnerable and so loved that when she died, it left a massive hole in the movie. And I think for me as an artist, that felt like a really exciting challenge.
Well, let's talk about the love story, because one of the things that I loved about it was that we saw your characters meet, and you really spent the time to invest like in this relationship. And the movie doesn't work without it, but I think a lot of movies would have blown past that and got to The Crow killing lots of people. But I really love that choice.
There were a lot of discussions about the getting to the killing much quicker, but that was testament to really these two. Because that chemistry was so potent, it was like undeniable, and I don't think we would have gone on that journey of kind of emotional violence had we not had that kind of period of those two falling in love and us, the audience, wanting to do that. And as Twigs was saying, it's like it's very important that her loss to him was the loss to the audience.
I mean, you guys' chemistry was so great. Did you read together before? Did you guys test together, or just sort of like you both got cast and then?
I'm a legendary matchmaker.
Well, good work.
I was a little nervous, as was probably these two, but we all had dinner like the first time. We all kind of really sat down when we all landed in Prague, and it was just like they were just so cute together. And then day one, they were just like smoking joints and swimming in the lake and kissing, and I was like, wow, these two are just so in love. It was a really beautiful thing to watch. Testament to their acting abilities.
Well, how about you guys? Like, what is your process when you work together with other actors? Like, do you like to get to know each other? Do you like what's your process with that and building that chemistry and that kind of relationship?
No, well, you know, it's true. Like I knew that it was so important that this chemistry would work, and that, you know, for the movie and also from Eric's perspective, it was just like, okay, well, he needs to project like her as a saving angel and all of his love to her. So when he loses her, it motivates the rest of the movie. So of course it was like, you know, like I knew Twigs from afar and I thought she was awesome and cool, but like the chemistry needs to be on screen, and luckily we got along really well, and we really had, you know, trust, and I felt very safe with you, and hopefully likewise, and we kind of bonded that way, and really could, like, you know, give ourselves to each other in this way.
Twigs?
Concur?
Yeah, I think that Bill and I got on from the beginning, really, and I think we found common ground in the fact that we're both young artists, we're both very passionate about what we do, and, you know, we're both vulnerable and raw, and so in that way alone, I feel like there's so much to bond with when you're working on a project and you both have the same goal of trying to make something new and authentic.
To back up a little bit, because I swear to God, you were reading about a Crow remake or reboot for 30 years, and there's so many different versions of it. Can we talk a little bit about the development process once you came on, Rupert? Like, where was the script at when you came on, and what were the ideas and elements that you brought to it that you were excited about putting into this movie?
There actually wasn't a script. It was very much, I had a conversation about what I would do with it, and I had a very clear idea just when someone said to me, would you be interested in The Crow? And I was interested in the mythological idea of The Crow, of self-sacrifice. I thought that the idea of someone sacrificing himself for someone else was so deeply romantic, and I think it's something that from our culture has really gone. I think we're very become very like socially inverted and quite selfish, and the idea of someone laying down their life, their eternal life for someone else's mortal life, even though they wouldn't be able to see them again or be with them again, I thought was deeply romantic. And I liked the idea of this, like these two broken souls finding each other and being like kind of broken by this culture that exists in our society, the higher echelons that are kind of unattainable, and we've seen it so often recently in these kind of excluded from laws by, you know, very good lawyers and money thrown at them to protect them in what they're doing. And I also like this idea of a devil being charming and seductive, and being able to like break people and then let them fall down to hell slowly of their own kind of their own like internal trauma were all themes that really interested me, that came, you know, very quickly from kind of initial conversations, and that then became the script. And really working with these two, to be honest, like a lot of this film is testament to what we kind of workshop together. Like the script, to be honest, was quite a fluid thing. Like we'd sit down and go, well, this doesn't work, this is bad, and so, you know, Twigs and Bill came up with most of the bath scene of like Twigs, you know, I remember her saying like, the most romantic thing boys ever say to me, or I want to say to boys, like, what's the first thing you liked about me? And that was really the gestation of that scene. So like, we made an independent movie that we hope like works within the much bigger like commercial sphere of what you expect about a superhero movie, although it really isn't a superhero movie or an anti-hero movie, but it's an independently financed and spirited movie that was made outside the system that we hope competes with the system because it's resonant, it's emotional, it's dramatic and it's violent and it's got great action, and those are things that you can do because you're outside the studio system.
Yeah, and I love that about it when because I had no idea what to expect, but when I was watching it the other night, I was like, oh, you made this like gritty indie drama. It's like within the confines of a Crow movie, and I really was invested in that
people
idea.
were expecting a really, shockingly, thin studio version of this, and I think that's what there was a lot of like, oh, why are they doing that? And I think actually we in order to make a film of this scale, although it's an independent, you need something that you can kind of hang on in. And I was saying to these guys earlier that like the best thing about this film, and probably the worst thing about this film, is the Crow, because you have so much to live up to, but it allows you to make a film that I think to me is like it's a wild move away from the original, but is still like deeply resonant with that original material.
Let's talk about the look of what ended up being The Crow, which I really dug. Like I love the sort of tears of the eye makeup that felt kind of like Batman when he took off his mask. Bill, how involved were you in sort of figuring out the look with all the tattoos, and did you cut your own hair, and all the different aspects of the look of this character?
Yeah, well, I mean, Rupert worked with this great concept artist who makes he makes a concept picture of my face on top of what potential design could be. And that's the first time I saw the haircut. So I was like, oh, okay, well that fucking works. I think it looks cool. And then with the...
You didn't want to keep it?
Huh?
You didn't want to keep it?
You said I should.
I wanted to keep it.
I love Bill in The Crow. I must say, like, when I'd meet Bill off set and I'd be like,
boring.
Boring Bill, where's your like cool look? Where's the mullet?
Yeah. No, but and then the tattoos was a process. We tried a lot of different versions, and Rupert was obviously very involved in it, and we figured out what we find was like cool, and some stuff that I kind of implemented that I thought was like true for the character, and little personal things and Easter eggs in that, and yeah, and I think that to Rupert's, he really wanted the sort of transformation to feel very organic, so it's not like he just comes back and he just looks like the Crow. So the jacket that there's like an emotional beat of the jacket in the apartment scene, and it's left inside out, and then that becomes his jacket, and then the makeup as well, where it's just like him sitting in his dad's friend's apartment, dipping his finger into the tattoo ink, and then he goes, starts painting it on. So we wanted it to feel like an organic process of throughout the movie of how he becomes the way he becomes.
That's cool, and I love that. I don't know, it kept feeling like Blade Runner to me with the trench coat and the rain and the stuff and the lighting and stuff. It really worked really well. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the villains, because you touched on it a second ago, but I love what you did about the villains, and it felt very timely. Like, because in the first one, I believe they're just like local crooks and mobsters, but I sort of like the idea we are living in a time of the haves and the have-nots, and we feel like they're these billionaires that are kind of untouchable and just keep getting richer and richer while everyone else doesn't. And so, do you want to talk a little bit more about that idea of like the idea of these people kind of sucking souls away from the helpless? Or
yeah, I've always been drawn to like rebellion and getting back at the man, and I think there's like there was something like, I like the kind of Sid and Nancy version of these two, who are like coming from somewhere and never able to, they're prey to the upper echelons. And I think we've seen it. I'm not going to name any names, but we've seen it so many times, and they're just the ones who've been put in the spotlight. But there is that kind of, and also it's metaphoric. It's not just a kind of physical abuse. It's or a mental abuse. It's a physical abuse, and it's much bigger than that. And that to me was like the genesis of that story. But I didn't want it to be like front and center, because to me it's much more about these two, you know, and it was just really providing in a way the kind of the push, the urgency to these two becoming together, because I think we talked a lot about the kind of Sid and Nancy kind of Bonnie and Clyde story of these two like thrown together. They're almost like, you know, broken porcelain mended by the Japanese, where the break is celebrated by gold. And there was something really beautiful, and Bill kept saying like it's so important that like I express my love and that people really fall in love with her the way I do. And I think, you know, also there's this kind of thing in the, we couldn't have remade the original now. Like the idea of seeing a brutal rape at the beginning and a woman just being like a kind of a silhouette. There's no character to that woman in the original Shelley. She's not there. You know, to me, this film doesn't work without us falling in love with Twigs. And also, I think you don't go on a story. I didn't want to make a nihilistic revenge movie where angry man kills lots of people because my woman's dead. You know, that's not where we are. So the idea really is that for Bill, it's like it's a chance to win her back. Like he's doing it, and he's, you know, I think what Bill did so beautifully is in the opera sequence. It's not just a sequence of just choreographed violence. There is violence and there is choreography, but it's a monologue of Bill's performance. He is there, broken, on the verge of tears, because he's covered in blood and he doesn't want to kill anymore, but he knows the only way to get her back is to keep killing. And it's kind of that, you know, whoever fights monsters, it's like he's in that position now. And I think that's really testament to how Bill, you know, not only did all the stunt work himself, but he finds moments of emotional connection and all the like downbeats of that story. You know, there's like 12 or 14 little range points in that scene that I think really make that an evocative sequence and really draw people in. It's not just because it's violent and it's action, it's because Bill's acting it, you know?
Well, there's a bunch of things in there I want to follow up on, but one of the things that struck me, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, I loved Greek mythology when I was young.
Yeah.
And this, you know, in talking about their relationship, like this reeks of, you know, the idea of like, you know, these lovers and going into the underworld to try to get the one that you love back, but then the catch is you don't get to see them anymore. I mean, do you guys want to talk a little bit more about that? Because obviously that felt like that was infused in this.
Yeah, I can't remember much of my Greek mythology, but it was very baked into this, and I can't remember his name, but he did go to hell to get his wife.
Yeah, I forgot his name too, but I was thinking about
Bill?
Was it Persephone?
Hercules, Heracles, something like that. Anyway, it was Don't Look Back. But a lot of that, you know, there's a lot of mythology. It is a mythological story, and I think that's like another departure from the original that people aren't expecting, is you've got this kind of strange, almost like Tarkovsky stalker underworld that is like the place where you go in between. And I think the idea of him moving between worlds, like The Crow, is really interesting. And I think a lot of that ties back to mythology and the kind of the doomed lovers as well. You know, it's like there's a lot of it in there that feels kind of connected to bigger universal stories.
I want to talk about the action. Bill, one of my favorite movies this year was Boy Kills World, which, if you guys haven't seen it, is a fantastic movie that's so much fun, and he's really great in it. Rupert said that you did most of your action in this. What's your relationship to that? Do you love doing that? Like, this is did you do these movies back to back, or?
Yeah, I did. So, Boy Kills World was like insanely demanding on the physicality and like the transformation to become that and then learn it. And you know, it was an independent film shot in Cape Town, and we did not have enough resources or time, so it was just like, you know, very, very demanding. But it was good because I was so used to it. So like, I think like I
really benefited from Bill arriving just fucking ripped and like in shape.
Yeah.
Like, our movie was nothing compared to that. So.
No, in a way it was. I mean, it had different challenges, like every project does. But like the choreography was like, you know, Adam Horton, our action choreographer. I remember just like going into it, and I'm like, okay, we're because the only big sort of action choreography scene is the opera house. And I think I learned it in like 30 minutes because my mind was so adapted to learning choreography. And I'm like, all right, is this the whole thing? And they're like, yeah, we expected this to be take 2 days. And I was like, but we got it right, and then we changed the whole choreography and then redid it. So I don't know. I do enjoy it, but also I think I had a brain for memorizing choreography. If that's such a thing, you're such a great dancer.
Yeah, the one regret is that Twigs didn't get any fighting because we're desperate to get her back with a sword. Movie 2, maybe.
Maybe in the second one when you fight your way out of hell.
Yeah.
Twigs is mental with a sword.
No, and her physicality, I mean, it's unreal.
Well, I was going to ask you, did you do musical theater? Did you do dancing? Because Bill, it is similar.
No, I don't know. It's just I think it's like an intuitive thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like for me, I just it's like memorizing lines for a scene somehow. It's like, and then you go, like, you start going through the beats, and if something doesn't make sense, why, you stop at some move, for instance, and you're like, why do I keep stopping here? It's like something's wrong here. It's like, okay, well, yes, it's because you're doing like an awkward kind of turn that's just unorganic. And it's like the same thing with lines sometimes, where like, there's a reason for why I'm stumbling on this line, because like the thought trajectory or the it doesn't make sense, or the emotional trajectory doesn't make sense. So it felt very organic, and that's kind of how I structured. So whenever I hit a bump, I was like, why is this a bump? And then I go like, oh right, because like I feel like my angle, like if I'm over here, I wouldn't turn and then slice over there, whatever it could be. But yeah, but Rupert's point as well is like we treated the opera scene not as like this. It is very violent and it's very gory, but it had to be sort of a cathartic moment for Eric, and a very emotional moment, because there's no joy left in having to give her up in order to save her in a way.
Twigs, I saw a quote of yours today that I thought was really interesting, where you talked about how one of the things you liked about this movie is it let you re-embrace darkness. Do you want to talk a little bit about that idea? Because I'm not going to repeat it as articulate as the quote that I read from you today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in The Crow, there's a lot of beauty in the darkness, and I was at a point in my life where I was trying to shy away from my darkness, I guess, like in the pursuit of some sort of happiness, which doesn't really exist. So I think that through playing Shelley, I just realized that, I guess the first time I watched Girl Interrupted, it's the same thing. It's like, wow, these characters are so broken, but they're so perfect, and they're so wonderful. And for me, that's what my humanity is. I'm never going to be perfect. It's never going to be just so, but there's a wild and amazing story in that, and it is exactly as it's supposed to be. So I think through me playing Shelley, I was able to embrace that part of myself as well.
And water plays a big part in the movie. How much of the shoot were you guys soaking wet and underwater?
All of it.
If it wasn't underwater, it was like pouring fake rain on us.
I mean, I actually remember the last take that we did, people coming in and just pouring plastic cups of water on us in between takes. So we'd have this emotional scene where we were like looking into each other's eyes and crying, and we'd call cut, and someone would just come in with a cup and just pour it over us.
Yeah.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I mean, and then the underwater stuff we did in Munich. No, in Bulgaria, Sofia, Bulgaria, which triggers twigs. I kind of liked it actually. I thought it was.
You were amazing at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked it.
You were so good.
Well, did you enjoy it? It's one of those things that you don't think about while watching a movie, but I knew I was going to talk to you guys. So the opening scene's really beautiful with the a black goo going everywhere and in your mouth. But then I was like, oh shit, you guys had to actually shoot that. So what?
That's literally the last thing that we shot on production.
In case they killed you with the black goo.
Yeah.
So how did you guys shoot that?
It's pretty crude, to be honest. If it was David Fincher, it would have been all CG and cost like $4.5 million. But we did it for $40 with a big agricultural trough and some like food thickening agent and food coloring. And I think I was probably pushing my luck, but I said to Bill that we don't have a title sequence. I've got this idea. We've got the high-speed Phantom here. Like, would you mind like getting naked and thrashing around that tub? It'll take 20 minutes. And Bill looked at me, and he was already shivering in a dressing gown from the previous scene, and he was like, sure. I was like, Bill, you're a legend, in you go. And then he went in, and then I think I was still pushing it. I was like, Bill, it'd be great if you like spat the liquid out. And he's like, sure, man. I'm like, oh, Bill, I fucking love you, man. He did the same going into the Prague River. I was like, he might just come, might just go in up to here, but he went like, I was like, he's gone under.
Yeah,
and
nobody swims in that river apart from the river rats.
Yeah, it's like it is, and the Prague river rats are like dogs. They're not really rats. They're a special species.
Yeah, they look like
Otters.
beavers.
Yeah, they're like beavers with rat tails.
Yeah. Anyways, like the whole crew was like, I will never swim in that river, man.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep your eyes closed.
The glamour of being a movie star, guys. River rats and black goo in your mouth. Before I open up to a couple questions from the audience, something I thought was interesting. Rupert, I read that there were no real guns on this set.
No real what? Sorry.
There were no. You didn't use any real guns on this set, and that's different. That's not usually what people do. What was the choice, and how did that work?
I think it was. I think obviously there is a history. I think, my job as a director is to minimize risk from my actors. Film set is dangerous without guns. You have fast-moving vehicles. You have, it's basically you're on an industrial site at night doing long hours for a long space of time. So my kind of responsibility is to these guys and to make sure they have the space that's safe to create and to work. And when we looked at, okay, what's the advantage of a blank firing weapon? A blank firing weapon has to also fire a live round, or is capable of firing a live round. And when we looked at it, we just decided it wasn't worth the risk. And there's a lot of guns in confined spaces, which blanks are very, damaging to the ear too. So we went down the route of like looking at trying to put LED lights within airsoft guns. In the end, that became kind of not really as effective as it should have been. So we ended up literally just using airsoft guns, and with a good actor like Bill, like even with a shotgun that's not firing, his ability to sell the recoil and stuff is really all you need. When a muzzle flash is only one frame, it's quite an easy thing in VFX just to kind of create a luminance source and flash the frame, and the muzzle flash, airsoft gives you the slide back, and it gives you some smoke because it's using compressed air. It doesn't give you a casing, so you have to add the casing and muzzle flash, but it just seemed like it was a little bit more VFX work, but it was just ruling out anything in the gun department being an issue. Having said that, we had an exceptionally good armorer and a military protocol. Nothing was done kind of, by anyone outside of the armory department. It was very, they just finished the Chris Hemsworth extraction too. They're, where they're firing thousands of blank rounds. But to me, it wasn't worth the risk for the work we were doing.
I did have like 30 squibs on me for the walking up. I think that the special effects guy was like, I've never put on this many squibs on anybody before. And I was like, great, how's it gonna go? Probably good.
And they tell you if you set yourself on fire, just jump in the Prague River.
Yeah.
The rats will lick off the fire. Yeah. Take care of it. Before we open the questions, obviously, hopefully, if the movie does very well, you would make more Crow movies. Have you guys had thoughts or conversations about other stories with these characters that you'd like to see?
Twigs actually pitched us at dinner.
Oh, that's
Crow
interesting.
2, a la Twigs. No, we're not there yet. We've made an amazing movie. We're really proud of it. It finishes in an amazing way, and we're just gonna have a holiday for a couple of months.
That's great. So we only have time for a couple questions. Who has a really good question? You right there.
First of all, thank you guys so much for all your hard work on making this movie. Before I start my question, I'm from Sofia, so thank you for shooting there and contributing to my hometown.
Hell yeah!
Sorry, Twigs, about whatever went down there for you. I'd love to know, for all of you guys, what is a scene or a shot that you were really excited to bring to life from the comics that you haven't seen in the other iterations of the show?
I mean, I think a lot of it was kind of, the comic was kind of gestated and then things were pulled from it. I think probably the horse in the barbed wire was one that we kind of start the movie with, which is kind of metaphoric of Eric's past trauma. I think we didn't want to do like a frame for frame remake of the comic either. So, you know, I think it's in there, but it's probably in there in a kind of subconscious level. But the white horse in the barbed wire was one that I think was definitely an image that I'd never seen before, but I liked the metaphoric idea, the symbolism of it.
Way in the back. Yeah, you have a question.
This question's for Bill. So, both my kids were terrified of Pennywise. Can I take them to watch this movie?
Are they the ones in the pram, in the stroller? No, you can't. Sorry, I answered that, but I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, no, I think they're too young.
Okay. Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah, Rupert, you're a phenomenal visual director. I just kept looking at this and going, oh my god, I didn't have to go that hard. But I'm wondering, what's your process of visualization? Is it a lot of storyboarding? Is it just really intuitive at this point? Is it being on set and kind of just seeing what works and where the camera should go?
I think it's kind of all of the above. I think the biggest like pointer I can give as something that really helps my process when I tackled something like this is that I make a kind of visual Bible. So I just spend a few days or a week or something just trawling like books, Shot Deck, shout out to Shot Deck, and I just start to put things that just like relate to me from movies that I've seen and build up the kind of 500 images or whatever, and then I whittle that down to like 100, and then I put it to music, and then that's something that I can show everyone that just has like the kind of the vibe. I try and take what I'm thinking and find an image that kind of works with that. And then like I think the storyboarding process, I sit with a cinematographer, and we just like, you know, we're literally sitting around my apartment like acting out the characters. You know, how do we move the camera in this scene? What do we want to see? But I think, you know, with experience, you find that intuition, but storyboarding is crucial because if you can go to set with a plan, you can always deviate from that plan, but at least you've got something going in the morning because, you know, when you're in doing, you know, a 90-day shoot or whatever, or a 60-day shoot, the days come thick and fast. You're also in prep in the morning of a stunt sequence you're doing 4 days from now, so by the time you got to set, you've already worked 4 hours. So it's really important just to have that visual Bible in your hands in the morning to go, okay, we had this idea of this one shot that does that. We don't have time for that, we're going to do this instead, or at least you've got somewhere to start where you know you can like break the scene. And then it's like working with the actors and then just sitting and watching things they do and like, how do we capture what the essence of that performance is? And I learned that the hard way in one of my earlier movies with working with actors and not really being aware of how much they bring to the scene, of having this is my idea of what the scene looks like without including them, and that's a definite no-no.
I have a question for Bill. I'm really excited to see you in the new Nosferatu movie, and I wanted to know, with all these films, you play a lot of like freaky and kind of unusual characters in like so many of your movies. And I want to know, was that like a goal of yours when you started your acting career, or is that just something that came organically through like the movies that you got beat from?
I don't know. I feel like, you know, you are drawn or inspired by characters, so that's partially my fault. And then characters are drawn to you, which is their fault. But so it was never like an intentional goal. It was just like, you know, you read scripts, you audition 1,000 times, and when it was like, ooh, this is fucking weird, and yeah, like, all right, I'm gonna, you know, some stuff really gets me going. And those are the ones I usually tend to get. So yeah, I don't know. It's no, I could not say that I would have ever imagined or planned this. But even looking back to stuff I did when I was very way younger, I was always, you know, like interested and inspired by the strange and the weird and yeah. But even that's just what I'm drawn to, I guess.
Okay, I think we have time for 2 more questions. Who's got a really good question? Oh, well, the guy in the front row apparently is. Yeah.
So I have 2 questions for Bill. I'm just curious. I'm curious what your workout routine is for. I'm curious what your workout routine is to get, you know, jacked and before you start filming, like, and then do you go back to normal kind of average build after the movie's over? I'm just curious about that. Those are my 2 questions.
Yeah, well, like I said before, the Boy Kills World movie I did before this, really, that was such a physical task, and I had very little time to prepare for it, but I got into very good shape, or I wanted to be really shredded for it, so I lost like a lot of weight and kept working out and did that throughout that film, and then I had like a 5-week break between that and starting Crow, so my trainer Valdemar and I, we just kept doing the same thing, and I don't know, like I really feel like I've always been active, but now I'm like a little bit addicted to training, I think. And I also really enjoyed, like, I don't know, I would like train on set or before or after, and I was just like, okay, this is a great way to kind of manage stress and anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So I just felt like I found a new tool to deal with life.
Okay, last question. Yeah, right there in the.
My question is for twigs. Coming from music into acting, like, are there certain parts of the acting process that like really like resonate with your previous experience? Are there certain parts of it that you find difficult? What sort of things, like, coming from your director, like what kind of direction you find like works for you? I'm just curious about how that whole like, transition works.
Well, I think with music, I create the whole world and then I tell everybody like how to help support me in making it. But with the films I've done so far, it's amazing to be, it's like the whole world is inside me and then I almost like give that over to the project and to the director. So it's kind of, music is working from this way of creating and overseeing, and then acting is like, I'm like this ball of everything, and it's up to the director and the story and the character to determine which bits are useful to the project and which bits aren't. I think that I really love giving myself over to acting and to a character. It's kind of, it's less pressure, you know, but equally as rewarding.
Well, hey guys, let's have a big round of applause for these guys for coming down here to share their movie with us. I will say this, the movie comes out tonight. If you liked it, tweet about it, tell your friends. If you don't like it, keep it to yourself. But thank you for coming, and if you can stay in your seats while these guys need to leave, and then I will see you in a bit. Thanks.
Thank you.